What's going on, y'all? This is the Cover 3 podcast, and it's our recruiting hour special. Of course, we come to you every week on Tuesdays. I'm Bud Elliott. That's Andrew Ivins of 24/7 Sports. Drew, what's going on, man?
Not much, Bud. T-minus 1 month until National Signing Day, or I should say the early signing period. Busy season's upon us, right? And I think it's going to be a fun few weeks, just given the state of college football, right? All these coaching changes. We got schools gunning for flips. We got schools that are going to be assembling recruiting classes. And let's not forget, there used to be in-home visits with head coaches. There used to be these big monster recruiting weekends in December, but the calendar has set it up where we're going to go from Thanksgiving week right into signing day. So it should be interesting, fun times ahead.
Yeah, as someone who covers college football, but we also have lives and families, it'd be interesting if we could spread this out a little more like the NFL does it, right? To where we keep some interest in the sport year round, but instead, no, we want to do every single thing in a 60-day period here. Let's have the playoffs and free agency and the transfer portal at the same time. Love it. One thing, if you are loving though, if you're a Buckeyes fan, is the play of this team on the field. Julian Sayin, former 5-star Elite 11 winner, just absolutely just darting it up out there nonstop. And it turns out when you put the ball on target, guys like Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are pretty good dudes to run after the catch, go up and make some winning plays there in the red zone. But this is the recruiting show, and of course those guys are all 5-stars, and Ohio State seems to the conversion rate seems to be pretty high there in Columbus. If you're a 5-star, they might have two real studs coming down the pipe here. Tell me a little bit about Chris Henry and Kaden Dixon-Wyatt, if you would.
Yeah, story of the weekend in the recruiting world, Bud, right? We saw Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate absolutely go off against Penn State. Well, the night before, Mater Day, one of the top high school programs in the country, they take on number 1 ranked rival St. John Bosco, and they rally behind Kaden Dixon-Wyatt and Chris Henry, two top 247 wide receivers. They're 4-star prospects. They're going to be in the 5-star conversation when the next set of rankings come out. Those two combined for 9 catches, 259 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So they one-upped Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. I think the story here is Brian Hartline, Zone 6. They just keep reloading, Bud. And Kaden Dixon-Wyatt, to me, the player comp on his 24/7 Sports profile is Carnell Tate. I think he's another Carnell Tate. Chris Henry, by far one of the most polarizing evaluations in this class, right? The son of the late Chris Henry. He is a freak, 6'5", 200 pounds, runs a 4.59 in the 40-yard dash, but missed the bulk of his junior season with a knee injury, has been dinged up as a senior. So really encouraging to see him go off, and kind of reminds me of Nico Collins, like this big X on the outside that can take a top off a defense. So yeah, Brian Hartline, I think he's the best in all of college football when it comes to fine-tuning these wide receivers. Again, look at Jeremiah Smith, look at Carnell Tate, look at all the guys that came before them. And Julian Sayin is going to have some weapons to throw to in the coming years.
So a couple things here I want to add to this. One, I'm glad to see that some of these catches for Chris Henry are not wide open. I think I've seen him, 3 times in person now at various events, and I was always like, hey, some of these balls I need you to come down with if you're that big. I need you to win contested catches. Like Jeremiah would catch these, and in my in-person experience seeing him, he kind of didn't. But here, those are nice, man. There's defenders draped all over him too. Those catches that's. I know it's small sample set, both on me seeing him in person and also there. You've seen the whole film. I'm sure, the hands are much better than that. But yeah, that's quite encouraging. As for a guy who was hurt as a junior and then was a little bit banged up as a senior, but showed real flashes, there is a guy from our backyard named Amari Cooper who missed his junior year with Teddy Bridgewater was his quarterback, right? And then as a senior, he was kind of banged up, and then he ended up being first-team All-State 8A, and I think crushed it in the playoff. Yeah, 772 yards down the stretch. So, guys do turn it on at different times with the health. That I agree with you. That's a very polarizing evaluation there.
Well,
Buckeyes currently. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, Bud, like when my boss texted me in August after Chris Henry, went off on ESPN, it was like, how is this guy not a 5-star prospect? It's like, well, he was hurt. He played less than 50 snaps as a junior. You brought up those events. I mean, I remember seeing him at a 7-on-7 tournament. It's like when you throw 10 jump balls to the guy that's 6'6", like, got to come down with one of them. And that was not the case. But no, I think the most encouraging thing for Chris Henry, making those contested catches. I like what he's doing after the catch and capitalizing on the rack opportunities. Both those guys scheduled to be in San Antonio at the Navy All-American Bowl. If Ohio State doesn't pull them into, I would assume, college football playoff preparation, I don't know. They would be excellent decoys for whoever they're going to face. But no, Ohio State's got 2 good ones, and they got a bunch of other wide receivers committed as well.
So they currently sit number 9 in the ratings. Number 1, obviously, in the playoff, or in the polls. The playoff rankings come out tonight. We don't actually know what they'll be rated, but certainly, if they handle business, that they'll be the number 1 seed and get into the playoffs. Obviously, with that bye. Number 9 in the rankings right now, but is anybody poised to close stronger than the Buckeyes potentially?
Yeah, but I think this kind of applies to college football as a whole right now. And I wanted to ask you this question. We've seen all these early season, mid-season firings.
Yes.
Like, is that because athletic directors think that they're going to have a coach in time before signing day? Because I just don't see that being the case. And the recruiting calendar has just changed so much in terms of everyone races to fill their recruiting classes, by July 4th when all the coaches are on vacation. And then you turn the focus to your season and recruiting's on the back burner. And, with all of these openings, I think if you have stability, right? If you have continuity, if you're not changing a bunch of parts, right, up in the booth, on the sidelines, you're in an advantageous position to be extremely aggressive, especially if you're winning on the field.
Yeah.
So Ohio State is one of these few programs right now with 4 weeks to go where they can bust out the spatula. They can go hunting on commit list. And from my perspective, they're making excellent senior season evaluations. I get on Bucknuts all the time, and I do this with all the teams in the 24/7 Sports Network. And I look at the visitors list, and with Ohio State, it's a lot of underclassmen, but you'll see, a handful of seniors there. And I'm like, well, this kid's playing really good. This kid's playing really good. This kid's really playing good. So Ohio State's number 9 right now. They've signed a top 5 recruiting class in 6 consecutive years. I don't know if they're going to finish in the top 5, but it's been a while since we said, watch the finish for Ohio State. But I think that's the case because it's very unique right now. There's openings at LSU. There's openings at Penn State. And I don't know when those jobs are going to get filled.
I mean, think about this. Like, some of the names that they're, well, okay, to your point, as far as why are they firing some of these guys now? I do think some of it's jockeying for position. In some cases, you may be able to get the guy hired, before signing day, right? In some cases, maybe the guy can back channel who he wants you to hire as a GM, right? If that guy's available, maybe he bounces. If you were a GM currently at a P4 school that's no longer in the playoff race, or at basically any G5 school, I just don't think you're going to catch heat if you jump jobs right now. As a head coach, if you jump while you're still in the playoff race, you would catch hell for that, and probably should, because you're leading the team, and that would just be a really bad quitter look, right? But if you're a GM, maybe in some cases, some of these schools that aren't filled yet, maybe they have a GM in place next week or 2 weeks before signing day, just to kind of get the ball rolling, right?
Well, if we stay with this current calendar, does it make more sense for the GM and the head coach not to be attached necessarily, connected? It'd be more.
I'm glad you brought this up. I do think that there's I think we're still very early in the college ball cycle for this independent GM and head coach power dynamic to work, right? It works in the NFL because you also have a team president who's actually fairly involved in operations, whereas most ADs are not, because they're running a lot of different other things and they're fundraising, And in college, I mean, your head coaches are making like 4 or 5x what the best quarterbacks make, and 10x over almost everybody on your roster. Like, that just creates a power dynamic we don't have in the NFL. I mean, Andy Reid doesn't make 4x Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes makes like 4x Andrew Reid. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot harder to fire the guy if he makes more money than the top 10 players in your roster combined.
Yeah, I don't think we have the answers to the puzzle, but I think,
like, is he really going to answer to him? Like what do these top GMs make? 320?
Well, I think maybe, they make more. Maybe
someone make like 550.
They're making way more than that now.
You think they're making $1 million?
Oh yeah. Someone just USA Today just put out their list. It was.
Oh, they did. Okay.
It was a bit.
They're making $1 million.
A lot of guys are north of 5. A few have crept up into the, what is that, 7 figures?
Okay, so even if they're making $1 million, just like to keep the math simple on this, if your head coach is making 10, like, in what world are you making 10x your boss?
Yeah, no,
I just don't think that power dynamic works.
Well, I just think, given the 12-team playoff, and maybe this is a unique year because it feels like the early signing period is the earliest it's been in a long time. I mean, I remember it being
because the way the calendar falls.
Yeah, a few days before Christmas, not too long ago. But it certainly, it's just making things very interesting in terms of, if you're, again, a school that is, going to be talked about tonight with the college football playoff seeding, and you think you're keeping a bulk of what you got going on in place, it's allowing you to get extremely aggressive and to try to pry some of these guys away. The other thing too, Bud, is like I said it, there's like no big December, January recruiting weekends. So like Ohio State's dialing up a big one in 2 weeks when UCLA comes to town. Like, game day official visit weekends are back.
I mean, which is kind of cool, right? But like it's
I'm sure there's personnel people out there that are not happy because the kids play on Friday night. It's just very unique cycle, I think, is what I've arrived at. And I want to know if this is the norm moving forward.
I think it could be. All right, so let's finish on Ohio State, though, real quick, because I think this is really interesting. You got a lot of names on this list. Of them, so you have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like, you have like 6 or 7 names here. Almost all of them are attached to schools that either have fired their coach or probably should fire their coach, and likely will be doing so soon. How much do you think that plays into Ohio State, as you were saying? Like, who are these guys you think they can really flip?
Yeah, Kevin Brown, offensive lineman, longtime Penn State commit. He was at Ohio State this past weekend. Top 247 player for us. Very, very athletic. I think Penn State has taken Ohio State has taken a massive taking advantage of James Franklin not being there, and there being some uncertainty in Happy Valley, right? And those two programs overlap a lot when it comes to recruiting, same territory. And yes, recruiting has gotten so national, but there's still some regionality to it. And I think Ohio State is capitalizing there. They're also looking for another cornerback in their class. They got a lot of safeties committed. They've already flipped Kamari Bing, a kid out of St. Francis Academy. They flipped him from Maryland. I'm a big fan of him. He's got a ton of range, but they want to add a corner. And when I look at their recruiting class and kind of parse through all the tape, I agree. They're missing kind of a guy that can play on the outside. CJ Brona out of Florida. He's committed to the Gators. He was originally committed to Nebraska, flipped to Billy Napier and co. Back-to-back Florida champ in the 100-meter dash. This guy can roll. Now, I think he's more of a developmental guy, but hey, Ohio State, Devin Sanchez, 5-star corner. He's played over 150 snaps this season. Like, they don't need immediate help. I just think they need some long-term help there. And they're also after Jay Timmons, who we've talked about on the Cover 3 recruiting hour before. NFL pedigree, really, really good there. He's committed to Florida State. Noel's working to keep him on there. So, yeah, I think it's a smart strategy for Mark Pantonio, who's kind of the godfather in this GM role, and so much has had to change for him and adapt. But I think, to me, from my perspective, Ohio State has kind of got this thing figured out in terms of, okay, we're going to push our chips in for the right guys. We're going to sit back, we're going to wait, and we're going to find the players where the arrow is clearly pointing up as they embark on their collegiate careers. I think a lot of recruiting departments would want to be in that position. Obviously, it helps that Ohio State just won a national championship and is top 2 in all of the polls. But I don't know, bud. I think everyone is still trying to figure out, okay, how do we piece the roster together? There's a ton of different ways to bake a pie. Ohio State's model and vision right now, to me, seems to be the best one.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Like we were ranking jobs, and I think universally we all had Ohio State as number 1, just because I feel like regardless of who you hire, that they just keep rolling on really since like World War II. So it's a pretty nice little track record. Shifting gears here to something that does not have a great track record, that is Big 12 recruiting, absent Texas and Oklahoma. Man, we do see Texas Tech like trying to carry that torch to pick up the slack, and they are like the only Big 12 team that is even close to maybe in the coming years joining the blue chip ratio club and like legitimately being a national title contender. They pick up Kavian Bryant recently on CBS Sports HQ. What do our listeners back home need to know about Kavian?
Yeah, 2027 quarterback. So a junior in high school. He picked Texas Tech. He had a bunch of other finalists, Texas, Florida State. They're all involved in quarterback recruiting. It's on a different timeline, right? But all these guys are trying to get their arms of the future committed as early as they can. Kavian Bryant, to me, I think he is the best playmaker when we talk about this group of junior quarterbacks. He is a true dual threat talent. I think he is a fusion, and I want to be clear here, like stylistically, he's got some Cam Ward to him, and he's got some Kyler Murray to him, right? He's got the Cam Ward pocket confidence, the changing of the arm angles, the ability to feel and sense pressure. I want to caveat this. That is the Cam Ward we saw at Miami, not the Cam Ward directing whatever you want to call the Tennessee Titans offense. And then the Kyler Murray legs, right? Like he can absolutely roll in the open field. Now, both those guys were first-round picks. I'm not ready to say, hey, Kavian Bryant is going to be a first-round pick. But again, I think he is the best playmaker when we talk about these 2027 quarterbacks right now. Really good basketball player, point guard, could do that in college. I think mom and dad have this vision that he's going to play both sports at the next level. I do not think that's going to happen. Texas Tech, they also have it rolling when it comes to the basketball roster and spending a lot there. I just can't see Kavian Bryant getting on the court, but hey, I'm not a basketball guy. So I think if we're looking towards the college game, right, you know, who is he similar? What kind of impact? I think like DeMond Williams at Washington, that comes to mind. Marcel Reed at Texas A&M. You know, these guys that can create with their legs, but they also can throw the football. They also can connect on the long ball. So for Texas Tech, man, highest ranked quarterback recruit of all time, Kavian Bryant is tracking to be that. That's notable. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes was at Texas Tech. And you look at the Red Raiders, they got, 2 5-stars committed in 2026, guys that are set to sign with them and a month from now. And now they got it rolling in the 2027 cycle. They got Jalen Brewster, number 1 ranked defensive lineman in the country, and they got Kavian Bryant, number 3 quarterback right now. So much, I think, of what we've seen from the Red Raiders and what we'll see on Saturday when they take on BYU is these transfer portal acquisitions. But Joey McGuire is a former high school coach. I think his base, his philosophy is rooted in high school recruiting. And now Texas Tech is grabbing guys that usually would be going to play in the SEC, would be going to play in the Big Ten. And I think that's going to make them a force moving forward in the Big 12.
Man, I'm just trying to eyeball this. Does Texas Tech have more top 247 commits than the rest of the league combined?
I prepared a bunch of stats, bud, and that was not one of them. I will tell you this, okay? Under Joey McGuire, they've landed, I think, 4 of the top 5 all-time recruits, or the top 5 all-time recruits for Texas Tech in the 24/7 sports era. So it dates back to 2010. Have all come in the past 2 years, and they've all come under Joey McGuire's watch. So they are in uncharted waters when it comes to talent acquisition from the high school ranks. I mean, I wasn't around, back then. I know you got that fun sheet where we could look at, the pre-internet recruiting rankings, but they've never had this fusion of talent. And to me, like Kavian Bryant fits what they want to do. That system there at Texas Tech. And it's just been, I think, fun from my vantage point to see what they did in the transfer portal and then see them kind of calibrate and get it done on the high school ranks. It's like, okay, no, we're trying to build sustained success. This isn't going to be flash in a pan. It's working out with Lee Hunter and Romello Height and all these guys. Like, there does seem to be a vision here where it's like, we're going to keep this thing rolling. It's not just going to be a one-hit wonder.
I mean, if you look at this league on the power ratings, it's Texas Tech and in Utah, which Texas Tech pounded Utah. I know Utah's quarterback was hurt in that game, and probably that didn't help things. But like they pretty decisively won that ball game in Salt Lake. And then like the next team I think is power rated like in the 20s, and it's BYU, and then like nobody else inside the top 30. Like that, this league is absolutely there for the taking. If Texas Tech keeps spending, like they're going to be, it might be like odds on. Like literally odds on to win, meaning like more than 50% chance to win the league, like entering the preseason every year, which is wild. We just don't see that in a power league. And I think if you're Brett Yormark, you're like, yes, cool. Like I love pitching how competitive we are. I love pitching this whole idea like anybody can win every week. And let's bring the pro wrestling guys in. Let's talk about all the drama we have and all this stuff. But you do need a team that you're like, hey, if they make it, they can win a playoff game. Like last year, Arizona State almost clipped Texas, but they didn't clip Texas, right? I do think you need like to be treated more seriously as a league. You need a team that's like really, really consistently there that can win some playoff games. And in that way, if that team gets upset, it gives more credit to the team that actually beats them.
That's fair. But here's the other thing. And I know we traded texts on this. We seem to be on different sides. So Kavian Bryant is headed to Texas Tech. He's headed to the Big 12. I just gushed about him, said I think he's the best playmaking quarterback at this stage when we talk about dual threat guys. Keyshawn Henderson, potential number one recruit in the 2026 cycle. He's headed to Houston. BYU also has another heralded signal caller committed in Ryder Lyons, right? He's going to serve his mission trip apparently in Orlando, Florida. I just saw that on social media. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what he's doing in Orlando, but he's going to serve his mission in Orlando before he makes his way to BYU. Like the quarterback play in the Big 12, it's improving. I don't know if that makes the league more competitive, but I do think it is flattening the curve kind of around the country. And I think this comes down to roster management and the allocation and distribution of the rev share money and what you're getting from your boosters. Like everyone's got a different plan. And I just talked about it with Ohio State, but it seems like these Big 12 schools are going for these high profile quarterbacks. And really what it's doing is it's taking those individuals away, at least on the front end. And obviously there's the back end with the transfers and all the quarterback, that movement that happens after a year or two, but it's taking them away from the Big Ten and the SEC. I mean, again, Kavian Bryant, I think 5 years ago, it's like, well, this kid's going to Texas or Oklahoma. Now he's going to Texas Tech. Ryder Lyons, maybe it's Oregon or USC. Now he's going to BYU. Keyshawn Henderson, is at LSU or Texas. Now he's headed to Houston. So, I think you said you thought it was like, is this situational or is this the new norm moving forward? So I'd be interested to hear you expand on that.
I think it is potentially both, right? I think you're absolutely right in terms of like if you choose to allocate your NIL money to land a 5-star quarterback, like the value add I think is possibly better for a school that's not like a traditional like top 30 type school like a BYU or a Houston, right? Because like of the buzz that it generates locally, right? Like if you're a fan base, you're like, wow, we signed a 5-star quarterback, and you're at Alabama or Ohio State, you're like, bro, tell me when we don't sign a 5-star quarterback.
Yeah.
Right. But like if you're Houston or BYU, it's like, oh, we got a 5-star quarterback like that. That really can kickstart donations, interest in the program, the hype cycle. It does make people perk up. And like if you're a recruit, you're like, wait, Keyshawn's going to Houston? Okay, like I'm going to take a second look at Houston. Maybe that entices me to take a visit. Maybe the Fritzes like crush that visit. Maybe you end up committing it. Like that is how things work. Like you do still need to kind of build that whisper campaign until it's a shout campaign and really kind of get the ball rolling on some of that stuff. I think it's a bit of a one-off is this. Both those guys are like local prospects, who are like have special connections to the school. Obviously, BYU with the LDS thing for Ryder. Keyshawn like really wanting to stay in Houston. Houston like taking advantage of that opportunity. Now, granted, like they could do that with other kids in the city of Houston. They're like, hey, we have a lot of money now, and we are on the come up. And I know they lost this weekend, but like we are on the come up. Stay in Houston. Like why not ball out in your hometown and be a local hero? I think it's like, are we going to start seeing other kids jump on board with him? Like, are they really building towards that? It's where I'd say I don't know that it translates yet. That's probably, more years down the road, I would think.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is it's going to be increasingly harder to build out a quarterback room full of former 5-star prospects,
Yeah.
right? Like,
well, right.
Obviously with the transfer portal movement, but again, paying these individuals and figuring that out. So I think it's just hard to stack these quarterbacks time and time again. And you watch college football on Saturdays. It's not all just the 5-stars that are winning you games, right? We see guys all different backgrounds, all different stories, all different shapes, all different sizes, all different skill sets get the job done. So. It just kind of, again, goes back to the parity we're seeing in terms of how the talent is distributed.
I think it's actually great for the sport. So I was looking this morning, there are 12 NFL teams who already have a 75% or greater chance to make the playoff. There are only 6 college teams. Like we are so much more wide open. Like the NFL feels like half the teams are basically already out. Or about half. College, of the teams that would actually have some expectation of making the playoff or some dream of making the playoff, we have like 30 who are still like legitimately not zero, like not completely crazy pants scenario in which they make it. That's wild, man.
The only thing I can like relate this to is obviously I went to Florida Atlantic and, the Owls basketball team made the Final Four.
Yeah.
And like that run was one of the greatest like periods of my life. Now I was also getting married and all this stuff, but like going to the Sweet 16, not knowing that we were going to win and playing in the Elite 8 game and then winning that game. And then, ever since it's like, I follow Florida Atlantic basketball because I know, hey, all it takes is that for them to win a few games and then you are in the dance. So I can't, that's the only thing I can relate it to. And I think it's what makes it fun and keeps you engaged throughout the season.
I think Dan Wetzel said this for a long time, and I kind of stealing his argument here, but like why the 4 team was such a bad thing is because like everybody was so out of a 4 team so early in the season. And then the rights holder, which in this case ESPN, but clearly like if CBS had the rights to the playoff, we would run the same type of commercials. Like are you in, with the implicit message that actually you're not in, so you're out and your season is basically done. And we're going to focus solely on the playoff race, starting in like early October, in which you're already basically nuked. So like man, the ability to like get a 5-star quarterback to stay in that playoff race longer, I think it does make these other teams more viable, man, as far as building a real fan base. People go to schools. If you're going to like a Mississippi State, or if you're going to like an Oklahoma State, like you see on TikTok, like the atmospheres that an Ohio State or an Alabama have, right? Like you want to be part of something like that, even if it's not every year. A special run, like you said, can kind of build that lifelong fandom. And I am curious to see like how the Big 12 evolves with this for sure. Maybe not every team can do it, but if just one of the two of BYU and Houston, if they capitalize on having a Ryder or a Keyshawn, or maybe if Texas Tech like makes a deep playoff run, right? They spin that into a couple more stud high school players they can sit there and develop. Like maybe they have something there. I'm excited to see the sport expand. Like obviously selfishly, like as somebody who runs the show, if we have more fan bases care, that is good for our business. I think it's good for the health of the sport not to have like the same 5 or 6 teams win the title all the time. But who knows? Maybe everybody loves a villain. Now, speaking of villain, Hugh Freeze has been a villain in Auburn for several weeks. That tenure mercifully came to an end over the weekend. I know we chatted about this in the group chat a little bit. Like, my perspective was they did a pretty good job of being patient, throwing money at high school, building up the roster that way. Then they need to add a quarterback, and they just screwed it up twice in the portal. And I was kind of like, man, I don't think you should really keep Hugh Freeze, but it's not insane to me to think, all right, if you kept Hugh Freeze, you return a whole bunch of this roster next year, you go after another portal quarterback. Like, what are the odds you strike out 3 times? That they end up not doing that. They're going to go ahead and clean house, get rid of Hugh Freeze, do it late enough in the year to where DJ Durkin can't get the job, which I know was a concern for some people there, that if you fired him too early and Durkin did well, you'd have boosters pushing for Durkin. What do we think of this Tigers program right now from a recruiting standpoint? Because I will note, like, Bama's also killing it,
Yeah, bud, and I think if you're an Auburn fan, you gotta be upset that they didn't capitalize on the transition took place in Tuscaloosa, right?
Yeah.
With going from Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer. And remember when DeBoer initially arrived, it took them a while to kind of figure out the inner workings of being the big bad boy in the SEC and being able to get whatever you wanted, not only in the Yellowhammer State, but adjoining areas, right? It was like very West Coast heavy focus. And that's right around the time when, Auburn got a Cam Coleman in state prospect. Like, the opportunity was there to, punch through. And now you take a step back, and obviously Auburn's recruiting class, I think it's sitting somewhere in the 30s, but it was a group where it felt like a lot of kids, a lot of prospects, a lot of agents, a lot of decision makers were waiting to see what happened with Hugh Freeze's future. But now it's Alabama's got it rolling on the recruiting front. And when is that going to stop? I mean, bud, going through all of Alabama's top ranked recruits, it's like, man, they got difference makers coming. Now, I don't know about the entire depth of the class, but you want to talk about star power at the top, it feels very Nick Saban-esque. Yeah. So to me, Auburn kind of let the opportunity slip, right? They weren't able to win a bunch of games and really get it rolling on the recruiting front. I don't know what the fix is, because I look at the 2D, I look at the PFF. It's like, man, like a lot of these guys, like, the talent is there. You said it, quarterback. I think that's where they got to fix things. I mean, and that's not that's an obvious take, but I'll give you my perspective.
That's why they paid the big bucks, Ivins.
Yeah. I'll give you my perspective. I'm shocked they didn't break glass on Deuce Knight. Do I think Deuce Knight is ready to go? No, but I mean, why not show what the future looks like? And I think the other thing is, whoever is steering that ship, they got to figure out if Deuce Knight's the guy. Because if Deuce Knight is not the dude, then what is the short term and what is the long term plan at quarterback? And for those not familiar with Deuce Knight, top 64 prospect for us last cycle, long-time Notre Dame commit, lefty, dual threat talent. My player comp was kind of like Pat White, can beat me with his legs, throws an excellent out-breaking ball to his left, right, when he rolls left, but he's a dynamic playmaker, and he is tested off the charts. I just thought we would see some of him at some point, because I look at Mississippi State, and they're playing their true freshman quarterback in Camario Taylor, who that was kind of the rivalry, Deuce Knight and Camario Taylor there in Mississippi. And obviously, Camario is not starting games, but he scored a pair of key touchdowns last week against Arkansas. I just thought we'd see Deuce Knight at some point. So, how do they get it right? They got to figure out quarterback. And I think the silver lining for whoever steps in there is the Yellowhammer State, Alabama, has 3 blue chip quarterbacks that are either juniors or sophomores in high school. Gunnar Rivers is there, son of Phillip Rivers. His recruitment appears to still be pretty wide open. I think he's like quarterback number 5 for us in the 2027 cycle. He's been on the Plains. I would think he's a potential long-term problem solver. The other one's Trent Seaborn, committed to Alabama already. So you kind of missed out there. And then there's this young kid who's only a sophomore, Kingston Pryor. So basically what I'm getting at is there's talent there. Who's going to figure it out and who's going to navigate all that?
I am curious to see, like, if they keep some of these guys on the roster. Like, do they keep Ashton Daniels? Do they keep Deuce Knight? Does the next coach want that? Like, I'm assuming they hire John Summerall, but, like, I think there's some I don't know. I would put that at like a greater than 50% chance, unless he gets like an LSU, you know?
I like John Summerall, bud, but like, how many quarterbacks did Tulane kind of rotate through here over the past 2 years? I mean, kid
they did lose one.
Yeah, well, every kid that was in the portal, I felt like, Tulane's interested. Tulane's interested. I'm just
no, I agree.
It would be kind of funny. Let me ask you this: Cam Coleman. I think a lot of people forget, former Texas A&M commit. If we drop Cam Coleman on Texas A&M's roster, like where do the Aggies stack up in your I don't know, handicapping of the CFP race?
God. Like, with the guys they already have, I mean, shoot, they might be number one overall.
Yeah, I was just
like really, I mean, I have it Ohio State 1, and I think A&M is really good. Like, that offensive line is very much in the discussion as the best in the country. They seem to be able to like figure out how to use the quarterback effectively. They have nice, skill guys. They can rush the passer. Secondary is a little sketch, right? Like, when I model this out, I think there's like 3 teams that I would definitely project to be scoring 40 on them. Bama, Indiana, and Ohio State. So like, if you drop Cam Coleman on there, though, maybe you can turn around and drop 40 yourself.
It's just a thought that came to mind, because on Saturday, week 10, I think in the first hour, that sophomore receiver group, which it's generational. Like we said, that coming out, Jeremiah Smith scored, TJ Moore scored, Ryan Wingo scored, Mike Matthews scored, JoJo Trader scored, Braylon Staley scored, Jordan Shipp scored. Like, all these guys scored in week 10. And you look at Cam Coleman's stat line, it's like 5 catches for 34 yards. Too bad Auburn can't. Well, I mean, I'm sure they want to keep him for the next season, but like a trade deadline, just kind of offload him and acquire some assets.
What kind of premium are you going to have to pay to keep Cam Coleman if you're Auburn?
Yeah.
Like, unless you could tell him, hey, we are taking this quarterback and bringing him in the portal. Like, are you going to have to give him like $2 million?
I would think the number, like, again, it's kind of
hard.
It's
at least like a 40 or 50% premium on what someplace that has a real quarterback. Because like, at this point, if you're Cam Coleman and you re-sign with Auburn and you don't have an actual quarterback to throw you the ball, I mean, you're costing yourself millions of dollars in the NFL. Like, this is, what if Calvin Johnson had a real QB at Georgia Tech and didn't have Reggie Ball? He probably goes 1-1, right? But like, it was like, I don't know, like, he had Reggie freaking Ball throwing the ball. Like, I'm not saying like Cam Coleman, I'm not trying to get him to like leave Auburn. That's not the point of this show. But like, realistically, if you want to keep him, and should they even keep him? Like, where are they in their building cycle? You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point, right? Like, I don't know what the schedule is for next season. I will say this about Auburn. Like, I'm sure you've been there, bud. Like, they pack Jordan Hare, man. That fan base cares.
100%.
And looking at their commit list, I do just want to bring up one notable prospect that, they got a handful committed, but Braylon Womack, 5-star safety out of Mississippi. Tom Loy at 24/7 Sports, I think he reported on Monday, Braylon Womack expected to visit Texas A&M in the coming weeks. Aggies went back and forth with the Tigers here. Ohio State was involved. LSU's been involved with the recruitment. Braylon Womack's a guy that I've comped in the past to Caleb Downs, right? He's kind of that 5-tool safety. I think the one area of his game where he needs to improve, and I thought we would be here as a senior, it's kind of as an open field tackler. I think he leaves a little bit to be desired in that department, but this guy can cover. This guy makes plays on offense. He was the Mississippi Gatorade Player of the Year as a junior, has dealt with some injuries here as a senior, but he's back playing, and there's a lot of personnel people that fancy this kid. There's a lot of coaches that fancy this kid, and there's a lot of defensive coordinators that fancy this kid because he can direct traffic on the back end. He's got that football IQ. We'll see whoever steps in there at Auburn if they can keep Braylon Womack in the mix. But Texas A&M, right after they beat LSU, we talked about Lamar Brown, the 5-star. Hey, do they re-engage with that? They finished number 2 there. Now they got all this momentum. I think it's the same thing with Braylon Womack. I think you got to watch the Aggies here, and I think he fits kind of what they do on that back end, right? Maybe could get a little more physicality out of Braylon Womack at times, but he kind of fits the MO for Mike Elko in terms of raising both the floor and the ceiling of that defense.
Man, like that would be insane to think like the run A&M might be able to go on, after like the run Texas was on, especially with quarterback recruiting. If they're able to get those guys, if you're Auburn, like you can't be losing him. Like there are certain guys you got to work ahead on, especially in that younger cycle, but
I'll never forget this. It was last signing day. I was texting someone at Texas A&M like, hey man, I can't even remember who they added at the buzzer, but I'm like, really, you guys like had a great finish. And they said, no. 2026 is the class. And I'm like, okay. Like they were confident at that stage that they could potentially challenge for the number 1 position. I mean, I don't know if that's realistic. I would assume if you added 2 5-stars, you would be in that. But it's funny how that's kind of rung true because the on-field success has allowed them to only get more aggressive on the high school talent acquisition side.
So if you look at this, one of the things that people are going to have to consider in when they're taking these jobs, if you're LSU, if you get Arkansas, Ole Miss, A&M as your annual rivalry, like before A&M started going on its recruiting run, that's pretty nice, man, because Arkansas doesn't recruit at an elite level. Ole Miss does portal well, but they really don't do high school very well relative to the top teams in the SEC. I'm not trying to catch heat. Like, yes, on a national scale, they're clearly like a top 3rd recruiting type program out of high school. I get it, but like they're not a blue chip ratio team. They're not a team that's like they don't have national title pressure. They might have national title dreams, but they don't have like pressure if you're not competing for one. But like if you're LSU now, it's like shoot, man, A&M is putting together like an annoyingly awesome class, and we got to face those guys for the next few years. Like that sucks. I mean, you're gonna have to face good teams in that league anyway. But just thinking about the common opponents here, if they do, pull this thing together.
Well, but I think that's like the element of rivalries that kind of gets like lost.
Yeah,
and so you tune into some of these games, and it's like, well, yeah, all these players know each other, but I think when like the staffs go head to head for certain individuals, and I'm sure there's a lot of negative recruiting, like those are the real like rivalries. Like, no, we fought for this kid. Things were exchanged. Words were exchanged. Like those are the ones where, as long as you can keep the staffs kind of in place for a few years, like it seems to get the most fire out of both sidelines.
Exactly. So, all right, let's go ahead and go speed round here. Couple 5-star situations to monitor. This is not us saying these kids should flip or will flip. We're just pointing out some spots where these teams aren't making a bowl. These teams have a 5-star committed. Are they really going to keep them committed? This typically doesn't happen. Like history says these kids will flip. Let's go first.
Can I put this in a box here? But these are situations I'm monitoring, right? Monitoring situations. And
can you put it in a monitor? Like we're literally monitoring the situation.
There is like nothing, I think, concrete here. I've just been doing this for a long time. You have as well. We know how the sport works. 4 weeks to go. A lot of these jobs that are open, some of them are going to be filled. I think anyone that is getting filled at these positions is going to be armed with a huge rev share NIL war chest. And these are just 3 guys where, given where things stand heading into week 11, monitoring.
If I gave you an over-under of 2 flips out of these 3, and you can't say push, where are you going?
So how about 1.5? Because I think
All right,
2 would
all right,
flip.
fine, 1.5.
Yeah, well, if I said over and I can't put
Right, yeah, so yeah. That's why 2 is a better number. It really makes you pick. What are the halves like an auto over?
Okay. Well, there's 3 names. There's 3 names.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, are we going to get a sweep or are we going to get 2 holds? So all right. So Calvin Russell, Florida kid, dual sport guy, really special athlete, keeps kind of growing into his body a little bit. Committed to Syracuse. Syracuse had a nice year last year. A lot of us thought they would crash back to earth this year. I actually think, and they are, but I think we were sort of wrong in that because when they had the quarterback in there, they were an okay team. Like, they were not going to be another 8-9 win team, but I don't think they were going to do. I mean, they're not competitive right now. They're running out 4 different quarterbacks. Like, they took Ricky Collins from Syracuse. He can't play a lick. From LSU. He can't really play a lick. And they're probably going to finish, 4-8 probably? Trying to look at their schedule here. They beat Clemson. Yeah, they just lost to Duke 38-3. I mean, Pitt housed them. Georgia Tech housed them. UNC beat them in their own building. They haven't won a game since September 20th. They needed overtime to beat UConn. They lost to Tennessee by a million. So they got 3 wins. They finished with Miami. They're at Miami, at Notre Dame, host Boston College. So we're probably looking at 4-8 here. Fran Brown's name is still on a bunch of hot boards.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that's an incredibly difficult sell, right? If for the jobs that I think he would actually want, I think that's a really hard sell because the guy has very little experience as a head coach. I think he did a great job last year. I think he had him kind of on the right track this year, but that's a lot of think to sell to your booster community, right? And they're going to turn around and say, wait a second, he just had an Ohio State quarterback for 1 year that got him all his wins, and when he had to do it, I'm like, well, yeah, but the portal exists, So I get why he's on the hot boards. I also think realistically that's a tough sell if you go 4-8 to get promoted at Syracuse.
I would agree, and that's Calvin Russell's here because he's a 5-star talent, right? He's at Miami Northwestern High School. Teddy Bridgewater was the coach there last year. This guy's a uniquely dangerous red zone target. Like, he is a tall drink of water. The player comp on his 24/7 Sports profile is like Jacoby Lane, right? Like, this guy just makes these circus grabs. You can funnel a passing attack through him, and that's what they do at Miami Northwestern. Like, he lines up on the inside. He doesn't really always run an extensive route tree. The traits are there, right? And I think for Calvin Russell, if he wants to play, and Syracuse is the spot for him, right? Because I think what we've seen from Fran Brown in his tenure there at Syracuse is he's going to put the spotlight on his dudes. Demetrius Samuel, the young corner. I mean, he was comparing him to Travis Hunter. The reason why, though, I have Calvin Russell here is Syracuse threw for 39 yards against North Carolina this past Friday.
Which was your favorite yard? 39.
Okay, well, I got to say this. In a scouting recruiting chat, I don't even know the name of the walk-on quarterback that started. As soon as that came across the board, you know exactly what app I pulled up. And I was wondering about the true freshman they signed out of Texas that we had way too low because he dominated a low level of competition. That guy got beat out by the walk-on. So
way too low.
Yeah. Miami was involved with Calvin Russell. Michigan was involved. LSU was involved. Obviously, LSU's had a coaching change, but I think he's one to just track. Again, I've been doing this for a while. Miami-Dade. Calvin Russell's a Miami-Dade kid. And it's, sets up interestingly where Syracuse is playing Miami this week, and Miami coming off the loss to SMU. Believer in the talent and the upside and what Calvin Russell can be. And, I think someone's going to get, again, uniquely dangerous target.
I would agree, man. I think that, it's like we talked about with Cam Coleman. You better be real confident that Syracuse is going to have a quarterback coming in to throw you the ball. I will say I like this offense they run a lot. I think the Nixon, who I didn't know much about, the offensive coordinator, I like their concepts. They just don't have a player right now to throw the ball. So if you're Syracuse, you're probably scrambling and say, hey, man, we've got a guy coming in. We've already back-channeled this kid. He's going to be our starting quarterback next year. You got to be really kind of all hands on deck to try to keep him with some promises that he's actually going to get the ball. So, all right, 2 more here. Maryland has done some good things this year. They are actually having like really good success playing some of their true freshmen, who are playing fairly well. Unfortunately, some of the pieces around these guys are just not playing well. Maryland like leads the Power Four in drops, which is not great if you're trying to break in a freshman quarterback in Malik Washington. So big yikes there. They've had some young edge players play well. They actually have another one here, Zion Elee, committed. Loxley kind of went after South Carolina for him getting paid to visit Columbia.
Yeah, did you see that, bud? Like kind of like
that. That's kind of lame, man. People have been paying for visits for like half a century. Of course, you pay a kid to come visit you, and schools have been paying the kid. In turn, they pay him not to visit. Hey,
yeah.
man, here's 2 racks if you just stay home this weekend, right? Like this has been going on for a long, long time. So I thought it was kind of dirty pool to call that out, to be honest. Like,
you
don't think that happens everywhere, including your school?
Beamer barked like right back. So Zion Elee did take a visit to South Carolina, and South Carolina has been involved in the DMV, right? Stewart is from that area. Nick Harbor is from that area. Beamer's had a ton of success. Now, I think obviously, there's some questions about what's next and what the future looks like there in Columbia. Same thing applies to Maryland, right? They win open with 4 straight wins. They've lost 4 straight. To your point, playing a ton of pups, right? Malik Washington, I would love to see the adjusted numbers on him because when I watch him, no one can catch the football.
Dude, so bad.
I know. Sidney Stewart, Zaire Mathis. I mean, they got talent. Now,
yeah,
they're going to have to retain that talent. I think there's probably a lot of personnel departments around the country that have circled some of these individuals already working the back channels. But Zion Elee's here because, the recruitment has felt like he says it's shut down and it's like, okay, you take a visit. The school I'm going to bring up here is Auburn. And again, this is going to come down to, okay, when is someone in place? At what time? There's a lot of St. Francis Academy kids on that Auburn roster. He has visited there in the past. Goes into my theory that, hey, new coaches hired, armed with the necessary funds. I just think he's one to watch. I don't think this is anywhere close to the finish line. And for, the quick scouting report on Zion Elee, I mean, he is explosive speed rusher. He is long. He is narrow. I think that's going to be the biggest knock is, he's just not a wide guy. With that being said, he has this broad jump, bud. Like watching the camp footage, I'm like, this is the freakiest thing I've ever seen. I think he's like clears like 125 in the broad jump. I mean, that lower body, his ability to explode, and it translates on the football field. So, a guy timed to quarterback, what you want to see. And everyone is trying to add these pass rushers. So I think he's another one where we need to monitor.
Damn. Dude, that would be a tough break for Maryland, obviously. I don't know what's going to happen with South Carolina, but I mean,
hey, I'm all in on Maryland. I'm a Malik Washington guy. I want this to work out.
Yes. If you are a transfer portal receiver, you should be like, oh, wait, I can go in and I can play immediately at Maryland because those receivers suck, right? And like I can at least catch the football and this guy can get it to me. So like that would be a good spot to go catch balls. All right, last one here. We just talked about maybe a South Carolina win. How about a South Carolina loss potentially? Potentially, we don't know what's going to happen, but obviously, a disappointing year for South Carolina where this kind of felt like the make or break year for Beamer. You had the quarterback coming back. I think a lot of us questioned what they had at receiver. Offensive line didn't make progress, obviously, with you fired the O-line coach. Defense, not surprisingly, like, I don't know, like all the South Carolina fans in the offseason said we were haters for saying, like, your defense is going to fall off a cliff. And it's way worse than it was last year because last year was amazing. And you had like 10 or 11 guys make NFL rosters. And you're South Carolina. You don't recruit at that elite level, to which I think like losing priority free agents and stuff is not a big issue. Anyway, they're having a bad year. Now they might beat Clemson because Clemson's having a pretty bad year too. Like they fired Mike Schuler, their offensive coordinator, over the weekend. They already fired the O-line coach. offensive lineman Darius Gray is still committed to them. Do we think that they can hold on here?
It's certainly an interesting situation, right? Like, again, recruiting so much different than what it used to be. But like the position coach, the play caller are both on their way out. Darius Gray, love this kid. He's our number 1 ranked interior offensive lineman. Bud, you could bill him as a defensive lineman. He'd be a top 247 prospect. It's done on both sides of the ball. Excellent like basketball player, which is so rare to see for like a guy that's 285 pounds. Like he's like a double machine, a bit sawed off. He's not 6'4", not 6'5". He is 6'3". LSU was like heavily involved in this recruitment. Ohio State, Clemson. I don't know. I keep asking Tom Loy at 24/7 Sports, anything going to shake free here? Just because of the uncertainty, right, surrounding South Carolina. Now, I think for the Gamecocks, this is a potential plug and play option. This is exactly what the doctor ordered. A guy that has some polish, a guy that is physically ready to go, a guy that could probably play like 3 or 4 spots on the line. Like that has kind of been the Achilles heel for the Gamecocks. So I think he's another one to certainly monitor. And Bud, you brought up that game against Clemson. If Clemson had a 5-star commit, they would be in the monitor situation as well. They just don't, right? They are reeling right now on the recruiting front. They continue to lose players. Keyshawn Stansel, really good interior D lineman, flipped last week over to Miami. They also lost Dre Quinn, an edge rusher. South Carolina is not the only one that's going through it. But Darius Gray, Zion Johnson is who he reminds me of with the LA Chargers. I mean, this is a bad dude in the middle of the line. And South Carolina, who knows what the next couple of months look like. I think the next 4 weeks need to be about getting Darius Gray there because you might be able to pencil him into the starting 5 for 2026.
I mean, absolutely. If they're able to hold on to him, though, I mean, he would play immediately, dude. Like their offensive line is not very good. I hope he does stick. I think South Carolina is kind of I don't know, like a sleeping giant might be kind of a term that I don't want to use there, but like what's just below a giant for South Carolina? Like the sleeping, I don't know, like sleeping big?
Sleeping big? I mean, a sleeping team that can compete for a spot in the college football playoff.
Yeah, right? Like, all right, if Ole Miss can do it.
Why can't South Carolina?
Why? Like, I think that's your pitch. It's like, okay, like, why can't Arkansas, why can't South Carolina if Ole Miss can do it? Like they're competing. Like to win the playoff, no. I don't think Ole Miss has a shot to win the playoff. I don't think so. You know what I'm saying? But like to get to the playoff, and the thing is, it doesn't matter what I think. Because if you get there, all 12 fan bases that get the college football playoff, they have so much belief in their team that has been built up over the course of that season. They believe. And you know what? Even if they get absolutely snuffed out, they're still going to be right back there believing the next year. That's just how the nature of fandom works. So I hope he does stick, man. I hope Zion sticks with Maryland. I hope Calvin sticks with Syracuse. I think it's like the talent spreading out is good for the sport. Like we need to give people more hope to watch their team. Whereas I think we did real damage to this thing in that 4-team era, where there's nobody had a real shot. And obviously, Bama, just rolling everything. So awesome.
All right, last thing, buddy, because I know we got to run. Just quick shout-out evaluation of the week. I think me and you are also split here. But, hey, CJ Bailey,
dude,
NC State, they take down Georgia Tech, and I know Haynes King had this monster game. CJ Bailey, Jeremiah Smith's high school quarterback, this kid has come such a long way in such a short amount of time. Florida's Big Three showed him no interest really from the jump. NC State offered him, got him committed. Miami ended up offering extremely late, right before signing day. Sticks with the Wolfpack. I'll never forget right when he arrived on campus, staffer there texted me, "Hey, this kid is an absolute freak." I don't know, what is going to happen with CJ Bailey, Bud, but I think if this kid were to explore the market, a lot of programs would be interested, right? I mean, he can beat you with his arm. He can beat you with his legs. He's really improved in that department. I always kind of wondered, I'm like, you're this big dynamic guy. How come you're not moving the chains, on scrambles and design runs? He has started to show that at NC State. And, I made a list on Sunday because that's what I do. But I was like, how many teams feel good about their quarterback situation heading into 2026 at this stage right now? I think that list is like 10 schools that are like, yep, we got our guy. I think there's some other ones that it's open for debate. So I don't know what's going to happen with CJ Bailey, but if you haven't seen this kid play, he's fun, he's exciting, and NC State deserves a ton of credit for seeing the vision from the jump with him and beating Florida's big three to the punch on CJ Bailey.
And look, Ivins, to your point, some of the guys you had on the we're good list, I'm not convinced those people are better than him by a meaningful amount. They just the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, right? They're not going to jettison a good player to go get another good player. But on your list, Ohio State with Julian Sain, Texas with Arch Manning, A&M with Marcel Reed. Is Reed better than Bailey? I wouldn't bet my life on it.
Yeah. I'm just,
what I'm saying? Is Gunnar Stockton better than Bailey? I don't think so, but I don't think Bailey's better than him. I think you're both just good, rising college ball players. Bryce Underwood, obviously not trading him. Notre Dame's not trading Carr. Maeva at USC, Damon Williams at Washington, Raiola at Nebraska, assuming he comes back fine from this injury. Keelan Russell at Bama.
From the limited
really
stuff
good list.
Yeah. I think those are all, we're good. Now where it gets interesting, Oregon post Dante Moore.
Right.
Florida, I think there's a lot of people split on DJ Lagway. I thought DJ Lagway looked good this past Friday, but that is a conversation. LSU, we've talked about, hey, what's the plan there? Auburn, Miami, he would post Carson Beck.
I think he's 100% in the yes category for an LSU.
Yeah. It's a fun it's a fun exercise if you want to start really thinking about 2026. Just pick a quarterback and start comparing them on the top 30 teams. Who would, who feels good about what they got?
100%. I am curious to see on this list a little bit. Does Zollers play well, or does he play well enough for Missouri down the stretch to where they feel they like what they have, going forward?
We are stretching here. Can I get my Zollers analysis?
Yes,
because I think I'm qualified here.
Let's do it.
Missed pretty much his entire senior season. I believe when Zollers starts on Saturday, this will be his 23rd ever start, right? So he only started 22 games in high school because of a nasty injury his senior year. One of the worst injuries I've ever seen, kind of on the Jaden Daniels level from Sunday Night Football. But I think he's a scratch golfer. That's what he told us at the Elite 11 finals. Missouri's staff was at IMG Academy during the spring evaluation period, and they were FaceTiming someone to show them Donovan Olabode, who is a true freshman receiver for them. He's made some plays. I start talking to the staff, and they're like, yeah, that was Zollers. We're big fans. And I said the same thing. And they're like, Kirby Moore said, I've never seen or met a quarterback that plays as much golf as Matt Zollers. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, this kid plays all the time. The other thing Kirby Moore said, he's like, I've never seen this kid throw in person. He's like, we took his commitment before ever seeing him throw a pass live. And for those not familiar kind of with how, this all works, these QB coaches, offensive coordinator, head coaches, usually they got to see him throw in person. It's kind of right. It's kind of their thing. And I'm the same way when I evaluate quarterbacks. Yeah, you can watch the tape, but I got to see this guy. I got to see him live. And Alabama was pushing for Matt Zollers there late, or I can't remember if it was before or after he committed. But this he's got some talent. We saw it against Vandy. I just think my big thing is doesn't have a ton of game reps, kind of not the ideal situation.
Yeah, it's going to be hard down the stretch, but I thought he played admirably against Vandy. Like you said, there were some good things to like there. I'm curious to see, they may not be in the portal. And if you got an internal kid who hasn't been a full year starter for you, and you don't have to pay up crazy for him, that's a real efficiency edge in terms of spending, a real one. Yeah,
that hometown discount.
Right. Now, you won't get it year two, but
no.
But you get somewhat of one, right? Most people don't like moving. You they don't want to have to pick all new friends.
But I watching a college basketball game last night. This player had been at five different colleges. Put in my group chat, I'm like, could you imagine moving 5 times in college? That sounds like the last thing I would want to do.
God, he's sponsored by like Rent-A-Center or something just like don't own a damn thing, just rent like furniture, rent the TV, rent it all, bro.
That's 5 lost security deposits. You're just not getting those back.
Somehow, I think if he's transferring up, he's probably getting it covered. But if he's not, that's brutally inefficient, man. Sheesh. Awesome, Ivins. Well, hey, we'll figure out a time to chop this up again next week, and really appreciate y'all watching this. And if you like it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to like 75,000. That'd be cool, to keep building this thing up. On the audio side, you're all doing great. We were actually the number 4 sports episode in the whole country. So I don't know how the hell that happens, but we love that clearly. But we need to get the YouTube numbers up a little bit. So even if you are first of all, this is a better YouTube episode because of the graphics, because of the video, because of the great job Clara does on the back end than it is an audio product. So if you're an audio listener, hit the YouTube real quick, hit like and subscribe. Even if you have no intention of coming back, at least get our subscriber numbers up so it looks like we're a more legitimate channel on that. And we'll see you guys today at noon on CBS Sports Network.